everyone, this is Zach Webber, sci-fi comic artist, and today I'm talking to Jamie Primack, writer and artist behind Binary Star, a science fiction series available to read for free on Tapas. Okay, so Jamie, tell us about how you began the process, Binary Star. It's a very long, very rich epic tale. How did it come together in your mind, and how did you come to create it?
Yeah, so I was working on it like as a novel originally. But the thing is, like, I think it's kind of like uncommon for people to be able to write and draw. And so I was like, if I want this to like stand out more, like maybe it would be better as like a comic instead of a novel. So because I was like attending a comic school, like sometimes like if you have like resources already available to you, it's like you kind of just want to use them. So it was like one of our assignments was to like do a strip comic, and I was like, this could be like an interesting way to like test out like how would some of like the content from that book like translate to paper.
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of like strip comics of it, and I was like, those actually worked pretty well. And I was close to graduating at the time, so I was like thinking like I'd like to have content online like as soon as I like get out the gate. So I just started like converting that novel into the web comic that I started posting on Tapas like immediately. But I will say the comic ended up looking like nothing like the novel in the end. Like it really didn't follow the plot much at all. And I think that might be because of the strip comic. Like it started off like really comedic compared to the book. And so I think in more recent chapters, like Binary Star has become a lot more like serious and dramatic again, but like that really like comedic intro that it had, like it was definitely the result of like me hopping between like several different mediums before we got to this point. But yeah, I think the original idea behind it was like a lot more basic. It was just I really wanted to do like my own take on like the enemy mine kind of story. So yeah, it really just it went through a weird transformation of like started as a book I wrote in my free time, and then yeah, became a strip comic, and then like a comic. So it's evolved a lot.
Yeah, I think the process takes over part. It kind of takes on a life of its own. Once you start creating it kind of like creates its own momentum.
Yeah, felt like characters were like making. Yeah, characters were like making decisions that like I was like, well, it's not really how it was originally, but organically that made sense, so I'm just gonna like roll with it.
Okay. The look of Binary Star, it's all pen and ink. You're very old school in that sense. It's very traditional black and white, beautiful line work, beautiful crisp line work, and the black and the white, the balance of it, it's all very finely balanced. Do you think that some artists today rely too much on technology when they're creating their work?
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing because on the one hand, like I think a lot of people who do work with traditional art, they do have this tendency to like almost be like resentful of digital art. To be honest, I actually have no problem at all with like artists that work exclusively digitally. Like I think there's like a lot of advantages to it. Like for one thing, it's just like it's more cost effective. Like art supplies are expensive, less paper. It's like better for the environment. So yeah, and I think like technology is always going to keep moving forward. So like there's like nothing wrong with like people just like jumping on that and just like continuing to go with the wave. But I've always been of the belief that like if there's a lot of ways to do something, like it's good to kind of like learn all those ways. So I think it's like still for the best if like even if someone plans on just working digitally, like they really should learn how to work traditionally first. Because not only could that actually help their digital art, like it can kind of give them like, especially like these days when there's all these like different brush tools and stuff like that can like really inform how they illustrate. But like also there is like that risk of some artists, especially if they're like just starting out, like they might end up like tracing the art digitally, which I mean that's bad for a lot of reasons, but also it can just like it can kind of hinder someone like building those drawing skills, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, like these days, you know, there's the whole AI art issue and stuff. So yeah, there's definitely drawbacks to it because I have seen some art where I'm like, that artist clearly traced that digitally, and like that's when I'm like, yeah, that's not a good thing. So yeah, I think it's like it's good to be able to do both because also there's like artists who rely too much on being traditional, and then that can be bad too because it's like if you have to like work with other people, it's like, well, you got to know how to use scanners, like you have to be able to like
Yeah.
clean up your art, like because otherwise you're accidentally creating extra work for someone else. Like I like learned how to do lettering and stuff, for example. So it's like if I'm working on a project, like sometimes like someone else can letter it, but like I like knowing that I can also do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think some artists they might rely too much on digital, but I think like so long as they also know how to work traditionally, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few new people, and they have the skill, but you can see that they haven't got what they need to bring it to life a bit more. They haven't got scanners. They're taking pictures with their phone, and thinking, "Oh, it's such a shame." You know,
Yeah.
there's one guy he does these wonderful drawings, but then he draws them and then he colors them in with crayon, and they're like, the colors are awful, but the line art is good. If only you had a bit more technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jamie, what's with all the goth vibe? I mean, we've got goths in space. It's certainly something new that we don't see every day. Tell us where that comes from.
Yeah, so the funny thing is it sounds a bit odd, but it was actually just kind of like how I grew up. My parents are pretty eccentric. And so when I was growing up, like they love like horror movies and sci-fi, and like our house had a lot of like really strange art everywhere. Like I was like the kind of kid who would like, yeah, I'm like 3 years old and there's like a painting with like skulls on the wall. Like it was just like what I was used to. Like my parents, they like really like dark music, like 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 metal and industrial and
So
stuff.
you're
And
not a teenage rebel then. You're
I
not
like to,
rebelling against your parents like that, like a
yeah.
traditional goth. You're actually a second generation goth, more like.
Yeah, I like to joke about how like when I was like in I think like middle school, I went through like a pink like pop music Britney Spears phase, and like that was actually me rebelling
Yeah.
because I think my parents were just like, okay, maybe it's a phase. So yeah, it's just what we were used to. Like, they just my parents like they love like the Alien series, they love The Crow. Like it was just like the vibe that I grew up with, and so I think that just really like bled into my art in part because like they were just encouraging it too. Like if I drew something like gothic and scary, they were like, nice. So I've just stayed that way.
Right. Looking at Binary Star, you are the writer and the artist, and what stands out for me, something like your work, is the world building, the amount of detail that's gone into. You created not just new worlds, but cultures, different races. A lot of detail that a lot of writers they kind of gloss over. How important do you think it is, that depth of creativity in fiction?
Yeah, I have kind of mixed feelings on it, to be honest. Because on the one hand, like, um, I enjoy when stories have like a lot of lore and stuff. But I also do think that like stories can get way too like bogged down in that. Um, so like I don't necessarily think it's like that important. Um, like if anything, sometimes I've wondered if maybe I should have toned some of that down a little bit. But for me, what it is like I I see like world building as like really good like background content. I'm like a really big fan of like a story where like you feel like you just got like dropped into a new world, and so the story's not making a huge point of like immediately explaining everything to you. It's not going straight into the lore. Like I like to feel like you're just organically like you're in a strange place and you might not necessarily understand everything that's happening, but like that's okay. And some stuff you might learn about and some stuff you might not. Like it's just a mystery forever.
You don't want to hit them with too much exposition straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think like I don't know, I think it's not a great idea sometimes, depending on the genre. I feel like with fantasy it's like a little more acceptable, but like with sci-fi especially, like you don't really want the readers to feel like it's homework, like they're reading a
Yeah,
textbook.
yeah,
So like I'll put a lot of world building in binary star, like partially just because like it keeps me interested, but also because like I think it makes for better just like background noise and it just feels more realistic. But at the same time, like I never want readers to feel like they have to know any of that stuff. And if there is something they do have to know, I would make sure to like address it in the main plot. So yeah, I feel like world building, it's like it's really good to have. But I do think like sometimes people have to be like careful with that because I've seen um like when people are like working on stories, like writers workshops and stuff, like some of them they just like they've just got like hundreds of pages of lore and it's like I know that's interesting to you, but it's probably not going to be interesting to anyone else. So keep
yeah.
the most important stuff.
On the one hand, there are people that love that detail.
Yeah.
They really geek. They if you're a geek, if you're a nerd, you really love all the little details.
Yeah.
They say the devil's in the detail, and for some people that's great. But yeah, you got to get the balance right.
Yeah, definitely. I'm one of those people where like if there is a lot of world building in something, like I feel this way especially about like a lot of like video games and stuff. Um I actually almost prefer it when things aren't like addressed a lot and I have to like go figure it out myself because then it's like a fun little puzzle. It's like, man, there was some really weird stuff in that city that I didn't really understand. Like, I'm gonna go Google it, see if anyone knows what's up, like do a deep dive. But
Cool.
yeah.
When most people think of comics, they think of superheroes battling supervillains, lots of big flashy battle scenes. But stories like yours are more focused on drama rather than action, I would say. As a creator, how do you get the balance right? Too much of one and not the other? I think the reader will lose interest.
Yeah, I actually admittedly take like a bit of a clinical approach to this sometimes where like with like each chapter of Binary Star, like I have a tendency to just like maybe it's because like I enjoy writing, like I'm just a big fan of like the drama and dialogue scenes and stuff like that. But I do know that it can like really bog down a comic, especially because like if a comic, and I mean movies can fall into this trap too, where it's like if it's just constant like face shots and like you know mid shots and stuff of just people talking, like it really can get boring and slow it down. So like at least with Binary Star, I just kind of had this rule of like every chapter has to have like at least one action or fight scene, and I don't like force them to happen or anything, but it's like I feel like it's noticeable if that's not happening. So I do try to like balance that way where I'm like, man, they've been talking a long time. We need something to happen. Something has to explode. I don't
Yeah.
know.
You got to break it up a little bit.
Yeah. Although it is harder to draw. Action scenes are hard to draw.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's all good practice.
Yeah.
You're coming to the end of a story arc that you started in 2017. Do you think most readers of comics have an attention span anywhere near long enough to appreciate that kind of scope?
Honestly.
It's a very long arc, isn't it?
Yeah, I think generally they don't. I think like you're just speaking from like a practical standpoint. I think like the shelf life of most things tends to be only like a year or two in my experience. But at least with Binary Star, like I didn't really have a choice because it was like I'm the only person working on it, so I can only write and draw and scan and letter and touch up and do all these things like, you know, at a certain speed. So yeah, sometimes I have kind of thought like I really probably should have cut the story down a bit, because even as it stands, like compared to the original novel that I wrote, like it's much shorter. But I think that like you know, part of the reason I started doing the comic was to learn and practice and get used to this kind of thing, and that's definitely something I feel like I have learned is like it's probably better to simplify when it comes to comics. Like, not that I think comics are a simple medium at all. Like they're just as like rich and intelligent and full of detail as books are. But if it's like something that's like serialized, I think that like, yeah, you can only expect people to pay attention for so long. I'm actually surprised that like Binary Star has managed to like hold on this long, but I think it's because the way I did it kind of ended up with this sort of like unique situation where, because I was like releasing it like page by page, like slowly over years, it's more like more people have discovered the comic or just like my art in general over time, and that's kind of kept it alive. But I don't think that would necessarily apply if I was releasing it in like comic stores, like as single issues. I think the attention would peter out.
You've got a lot of followers on Tapas, and they're always commenting on the story and the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you've got that engagement there. So I think that shows that there are people that will hang in there,
Yeah.
will maintain that interest over time, even when it carries on for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, which I'm definitely grateful for, because I still got a few Kickstarters I want to do, and that was definitely a concern of like I hope I haven't like lost too many people, because with like COVID and stuff, like I put everything on like hiatus for a while, because you know there's like paper shortages and like you know, cost of shipping and things like that. So it's like I continued working on the webcomic. I'm still posting it. I'm still doing single issues, but the like trade paperbacks and hardcovers, I was like, you know, I'll put that on hiatus until things are a little more like stable. But that was a concern of like, will people's attention span like, you know, actually wade through all that? It seems like they have though, actually. So that's good. I wasn't expecting that.
Great. One thing that comes across in the story Binary Star is that the humans, they're not really the good guys. Do you think our species is doomed to export our destructive nature with us wherever we go?
Yeah, you know, it's like one of those things where like I never want to be like cynical. I actually like would prefer to be more optimistic, but I think like as things are now, humans, it does seem like we tend to fall back into these like same patterns over and over. And it seems like unless you end up in a situation where it's like the like Star Trek utopia, where everyone is able to lead like fulfilling lives, and you know there aren't those issues of like economic inequality and all these kinds of things. It does seem like humans will just kind of keep like doing that. And yeah, it's like I don't know if it's just instinctive with us or what it is, but yeah, I do think that like, because my first thought is like, if we sent humans to space like right now, what's the first thing that would happen? And I'm like, probably they're going to get territorial. They're going to like claim like this moon's for us and that planet's for them, and oh, but this one has better minerals, so now we're going to fight about it. So it's like I'd like to be optimistic and think that by the time humans can do stuff like that, like maybe we would have advanced as a species enough that like that wouldn't be as much of an issue. But at least as humanity is right now. Yeah.
One of the issues that ties into that, you've got the humans of the planet Anaxis sharing the star system with the Hakden-zarift, who they revile as monsters basically because they look different, their physical differences more so than their behavior, because the humans are just as bad in terms of their behavior. And it kind of raises the question, if we are if we're becoming a species that is going out into the galaxy, meeting other races, are we doomed to be racist to those races? Is that part of our makeup? Can we ever escape from that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's like it does seem like humans, the like instinctive like lizard brain is hardwired to like want that in-group and out-group kind of mentality, which I'm sure it just stems from like the hunter-gatherer times where it was like, you know, we have to protect the in-group, and if anything appears that is different or we don't understand it, then that means it's probably dangerous, so we have to hate it and attack it. And so it does seem like it's a pretty big hurdle that humans would have to overcome. Um, I kind of intentionally made it in Binary Star where humans like are actually seemingly more hostile towards aliens that look more like humans. And I think it's because like humans have a tendency to just like if something is completely alien, they're just like, that's weird, I don't really get it, but that's fine, you do you. Whereas like if something looks kind of human, it just immediately like triggers that instinct of like you are uncanny valley, like you
Yeah.
look like us, but you're not, and that makes me angry. So yeah, it's another case of like I don't want to be like pessimistic and stuff, but I do want to be realistic, and so I think that it's not necessarily something humans can't ever overcome, but I think it would take a really long time. Yeah.
Part of our evolution.
Yeah.
Jeez. So you launched Kickstarters for serializations of the series, and you're completing the series on Tapas this year. Is that right?
Yeah, there's one more chapter left. It's a case of like I probably could have gone a few more chapters, but I was like, you know, this has been going on a very long time and is definitely reaching a conclusion. And if we're going to be releasing things, most of the or so far all of the trades have been like 5 chapters each. So I was like 20 is like a perfect number. So yeah, the chapter 19 is done. I actually got the single issues. I just haven't put them in my shops yet. So yeah, chapter 20 would be the end. So yeah, I want to release that on line in my usual like page by page fashion, and then I'd like to actually just do the final Kickstarter where I think I would do volume 3 and 4 just simultaneously and just be like, and there we go, like we have completed everything. I did have to put chapter 20 on a bit of a pause because there was like some other projects I had to take care of, but definitely this year like chapter 20 is going to happen. So
for some people, they like things which are complete, so they don't have to wait for the next chapter.
Yeah,
they don't have to hope that you will do the next chapter. If they know it's there and it's complete, then that's more of an attraction, I think.
Yeah, which is totally fair because I do think like I hate to say it, but more projects seem to get dropped than not among a lot of indie creators, which is understandable. It's you know, it's hard to do like any kind of independent work, so I completely understand it. But it's like, yeah, I kind of have that mentality too, where like if something seems really cool, I'm still kind of hesitant. Where I'm like, yeah, but is this gonna like, you know, fall off the wagon in a few chapters, or are we actually doing this?
Okay. Tell us about your other projects, Jamie, your other artistic endeavors.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I always do illustrating on the side. That was like really important to me, was that even if I'm working on comics, like I also just really like illustrating. So I've always tried to like balance the two of them. So I'm still continuing to do a lot of like original illustrations and that kind of stuff. Like, you know, I'll have it up in galleries and things like that. And then as far as comics go, there's a few projects I'm working on. One of them is there's the Cthulhu Invades like that series. So I did a short story for the first one, Cthulhu Invades Oz, and then I did another for Cthulhu Invades Wonderland. And right now I'm working on one for what I believe it should be the final one in the trilogy, is Cthulhu Invades Neverland. So
Right.
working on that. I'm coloring those pages right now.
Oh, we get to see some colour.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm actually coloring them, which is taking forever, but that's okay. It's good practice. There is another project that I'm also working on, but that one, I think I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. Like it hasn't been like officially announced, so just in case, like I probably shouldn't say too much about it, but it's gonna be like a pretty big, like very exciting.
When you feel you are able to do that, please come to me, and I'll help you publicize it to the world.
Yeah, I think it was like everyone working on it is kind of like waiting for like specific like announcements times to happen and stuff. Like everyone's being like kind of crafty with it. So yeah, but it's gonna be really cool, like really cool. I'm excited.
Okay, we're going to look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing the conclusion of Binary Star. Yeah. Jamie, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
And all the information you need will be in the description. Jamie, thank you again, and have a great day.
Thanks. Yeah, you too.